The billionaire had been away for almost a week. He had left early in the morning for a business trip that was supposed to last only a few days. But some unexpected problems at work had kept him away longer than he had planned. He had always been a man of routine and control. Every detail of his life was carefully planned, from the meetings he attended to the meals he ate. His mansion reflected this control, everything in its place. Every room spotless, every staff member following strict rules. It was a life of precision, but one that often felt empty. His son, who had been paralyzed since an accident a few years ago, had adapted to a new way of living. The boy was bright and full of curiosity, but he had limited mobility. Most of the time, he stayed in his wheelchair, quietly observing the world around him. The billionaire loved his son deeply, but he had always struggled to find ways to connect with him. He believed in the best medical care, the finest equipment, and endless therapies, but he sometimes forgot the simple things: play, laughter, and the small joys of life. Among the household staff, there was one person who had formed a special bond with the boy. She was the maid, a humble and kind-hearted young woman who had been working at the mansion for several months. She had a gentle way about her, always noticing what others might miss. She saw the boy not just as a child who needed care, but as a person who wanted to feel alive, to experience life beyond the limits of his condition. She had found small ways to bring him joy, reading to him, playing games, and sometimes taking him outside into the garden, where the sun felt warm on their skin and the air smelled sweet. That morning, the maid had arrived early, as she always did, to begin her chores. But she had a plan that was different from her usual routine. She had seen how much the boy loved the garden, how he loved the feeling of movement, even if he couldn't walk on his own. She had spent the past week secretly planning something special, something that would make him smile from ear to ear. The boy was awake and ready, his eyes bright with anticipation. He had sensed that something unusual was going to happen, and his heart raced with excitement. The maid helped him into the garden, making sure he was comfortable and safe. The sun had just risen, painting the sky with shades of pink and orange, and the air was cool and fresh. It was the perfect morning for a little adventure. She knelt down in front of him and whispered, "Are you ready for something fun today?" The boy nodded eagerly, a smile spreading across his face. He trusted her completely, and he knew that whatever she had planned would be amazing. Slowly, carefully, she lifted him onto her back. She had done it before in small ways, practicing to make sure it was safe, but today felt special. Today, she wanted him to feel free. The boy laughed softly as he held onto her shoulders, feeling the warmth of her presence and the gentle strength in her arms. They began to move across the garden, the grass soft beneath. Billionaire's heart raced as he watched the scene in the garden. He had never expected to see his son laughing like this. He had imagined his son quiet, sitting in his wheelchair, perhaps reading or drawing. But this was completely different. The boy's laughter was pure, unrestrained, and the sound echoed across the garden, filling the space with life. The maid carried him carefully, walking with steady, strong steps. And she did it all without a single complaint or sign of strain. She was calm, gentle, and full of patience, and she seemed to understand exactly what the boy needed without a word being said. For a moment, the billionaire wanted to call out, to stop what was happening. He had been away for so long, worried about his son's safety and his own responsibilities. What if something went wrong? But as he looked at his son, he saw something he had never truly seen before: joy, excitement, and trust. His son was completely at ease with the maid, laughing and moving as if the weight of the world had been lifted off his shoulders. The sight made the billionaire pause and take a step back. Perhaps, he thought, there was more to happiness than rules and control. The maid walked slowly across the grass, making sure the boy was balanced and safe. She knew the risks, but she had practiced many times and had taken every precaution. She wanted to give the boy a moment that felt ordinary, like the moments other children took for granted. She wanted him to feel the wind on his face, to see the flowers close up, to move his body in ways he rarely could. She had seen the sadness in his eyes when he had to stay still, and she wanted to replace it with laughter and light. The boy clung to her shoulders tightly, his small hands holding on for support, but his smile never faded. He felt a sense of freedom he had not felt in years. Even though his legs could not carry him, the maid's strong arms made him feel as if he were walking, running, and playing all at once. His laughter grew louder as he looked at the flowers, the trees, and the open sky above. He shouted little words of excitement, pointing at birds flying overhead and butterflies dancing in the sunlight. Each movement was a discovery, and each discovery brought more joy inside the mansion. The other staff began to notice the sounds of laughter. It was unusual for the house to be filled with such cheerful noise. The cooks paused their chopping and cooking to listen, wondering what was happening outside. The gardener tilted his head, hearing the sound of running feet on the grass, even though there were only two moving outside. The butler stepped toward the window, trying to see what had caused the commotion. It was a sound that carried a strange magic, a sense that something wonderful was happening that no one had expected. The billionaire continued to watch from the edge of the garden. He felt a mixture of amazement and guilt. He had spent so much time worrying about everything: medical appointments, therapy schedules, and his own work, that he had forgotten what truly mattered: moments of happiness and connection. Seeing his son like this made him realize that he had been missing something vital. The boy needed more than care and treatment. He needed joy, laughter, and love. The maid moved carefully toward a small patch of flowers. She stopped for a moment, crouching down just enough so the boy could see the petals up close. He leaned forward slightly, his eyes wide with wonder, touching the petals gently. The colors seemed brighter than he had ever noticed before. He laughed softly, feeling the soft texture of the flowers, and the sound filled the garden with warmth. The maid smiled, feeling proud that she could bring this moment to him. The billionaire stepped closer, still hesitant, unsure how to react. He was used to being in control, used to managing everything and everyone. But in this moment, he realized that control was not what his son needed. He needed care, yes, but more importantly, he needed freedom and happiness. The sight before him was a lesson he had not expected to learn from a maid carrying his paralyzed son across the garden. He felt a strange humility, a sense that he had been blind to something essential for far too long. The boy's laughter continued, and the billionaire felt his heart soften. He remembered the first time his son had been injured, the fear, the hospital visits, and the endless therapies. He had poured all his resources into medical care, believing that money could fix everything. But now he saw that it was not just treatment that mattered. It was love, attention, and human connection. The maid had given him what he could not, what no amount of wealth could buy: a moment of pure joy and freedom. The boy looked over his shoulder and saw his father standing there. His laughter slowed for a moment, replaced by a shy smile. He had always loved his father, but he knew he could be strict and serious. He worried that the joy he felt might upset him. Yet, at the same time, he wanted his father to see him happy, to understand that he could still feel alive and excited even with his condition. He shifted slightly on the maid's back, trying to wave, but not wanting to fall or disrupt the careful balance. The maid noticed the boy's glance and followed it. She saw the billionaire standing at the edge of the garden, his expression unreadable. A part of her worried, had she done something wrong? But another part felt calm, because she knew her intentions were pure. She had only wanted to make the boy happy, to give him a moment of life that he deserved. She moved with steady steps, keeping him safe, while offering him the experience of movement he longed for. The billionaire took a deep breath and stepped closer. He wanted to speak, but could not find the words. The scene before him was more powerful than anything he had ever witnessed. The laughter, the joy, and the trust between the maid and his son created a moment that felt sacred. It was a moment that challenged everything he thought he knew about care, control, and happiness. He noticed small details: the way the maid adjusted her steps to match the boy's weight, the way she kept her voice calm and reassuring, the way she made sure every movement was safe, yet exciting. He realized that this was not just an act of kindness. It was an act of love, dedication, and understanding. She saw his son as a whole person, not just as a patient who needed attention. She gave him the gift of life in a way he had never experienced before. The boy laughed again, this time louder, throwing his head back with pure delight. The billionaire felt a lump in his throat. He realized that he had been so focused on what he thought his son needed that he had missed what he actually wanted. It was not just therapy, not just equipment, not just schedules. It was moments like this, moments where he could feel alive, where he could laugh, explore, and connect with someone who understood him. The maid walked toward a small fountain in the garden. She stopped and let the boy lean slightly forward, watching the water ripple and shine in the sunlight. He reached out his hands, almost touching the water, and laughed at the tiny splashes. The sound was contagious, and the billionaire could not help but smile. He felt a warmth in his chest, a feeling he had not experienced in years. It was happiness in its purest form. It was all because of the maid's care and courage. The billionaire finally spoke, his voice soft and steady. I didn't know you could do this, he said, looking at the maid. She turned toward him, surprised but calm. She smiled gently and replied, I just wanted him to feel happy. He deserves to feel alive, even if just for a moment. The billionaire nodded, understanding the depth of her words. He realized that she had done something extraordinary, something he could not have done, despite all his resources and power. She had given his son a gift far greater than money or status could provide. She had given him life, laughter, and freedom. The boy looked at his father and smiled, a smile full of trust and happiness. He felt proud that his father was watching, proud that he could share this moment with him. The billionaire stepped closer, feeling the distance between him and his son shrink. He knew that from this day forward, things would be different. He would no longer be only a provider of resources. He would learn to provide love, attention, and moments of joy. The sun continued to rise, casting a golden light across the garden. The flowers swayed gently, and the air was filled with warmth and life. The billionaire stood quietly, observing his son riding on the maid's back, feeling a profound sense of gratitude and humility. He knew that this moment would stay with him forever, a reminder of what truly mattered in life. The boy's laughter rang out once more, and the billionaire felt a shift inside him. He understood that happiness could not be bought, controlled, or scheduled. It came from connection, care, and the courage to embrace life fully. The maid had taught him a lesson he would never forget, and he vowed to carry it forward, to cherish these moments, and to never lose sight of what truly mattered as the morning progressed. The billionaire continued to watch, learning silently from the bond between his son and the maid. He realized that this was not just a fleeting moment. It was the beginning of a new way of life, a life filled with laughter, trust, and human connection. And as he stood there, he knew that everything had changed. That change was for the better. The billionaire stood quietly in the garden, still absorbing the sight of his son riding on the maid's back. His mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Shock, awe, gratitude, and even guilt, all mixed together in a way that left him momentarily speechless. He had always believed that providing the best care meant paying for the best equipment, the best therapies, and the best specialists. He had thought that money could solve every problem. Yet here in front of him, he saw something far more powerful than any treatment could offer. He saw happiness, trust, and freedom. And he realized that these were things no amount of money could buy. The maid continued walking slowly across the garden, keeping the boy balanced and safe. Her movements were deliberate and careful, yet there was a lightness to her step. She had done this before, but today felt different. She could feel the eyes of the billionaire on her, and while part of her worried about what he might think, another part felt confident because she knew she was doing the right thing. Her priority had always been the boy's well-being, and she trusted her instincts. She had learned to understand him, to notice the smallest signs of discomfort or joy, and to respond with care and attention. Every time she carried him, every time she made him laugh, she felt that she was giving him something that mattered more than anything else. The boy laughed again, the sound echoing across the garden like music. He pointed at a bird perched on a nearby tree, and the maid followed his gaze, smiling as she saw the excitement in his eyes. His joy was contagious, and the billionaire felt something shift inside him. He realized that he had spent so much time focusing on the wrong things and schedules therapies, and routines that he had missed, the small, precious moments that truly mattered. Seeing his son like this, so alive and so happy, made him reconsider everything he had thought about care and love. He took another step forward, careful not to startle them. His son turned his head and saw him approaching. The boy's eyes widened, a mixture of surprise and delight crossing his face. He laughed nervously, but held on tightly to the maid. He wanted to share this moment with his father, but was unsure how he would react. The billionaire, sensing his son's hesitation, smiled gently, a soft, warm expression that he rarely showed. It was the first sign that he was beginning to understand the importance of this moment. The maid glanced at the billionaire, her expression calm yet wary. She could see the change in him, the subtle shift in his demeanor. She had worried that he might be angry or critical, that he might question her judgment. But instead, she saw curiosity and a kind of quiet respect. She continued her careful walk, making sure that the boy remained safe. While silently hoping that this moment would leave a lasting impression on the father, the boy laughed again. Louder this time, and the billionaire felt a lump in his throat. He realized that his son had been missing this kind of experience for far too long. He thought of all the hours spent in therapy rooms, all the money spent on equipment, all the attempts to control every aspect of his son's life, and yet none of it had given him the simple joy that he now saw on his son's face. The lesson was clear. Happiness could not be bought or controlled. It came from love, attention, and moments that allowed a person to feel truly alive. The maid moved toward a small patch of flowers, letting the boy lean slightly forward to get a closer look. He reached out, brushing his fingers against the petals, and laughed at the softness and colors. The billionaire watched closely, noticing how carefully the maid guided him. She had created a moment where he could explore, feel, and enjoy, all within the safety of her arms. It was a small, simple act, but it carried immense meaning. It showed the depth of her care, the thoughtfulness in her actions, and the understanding of what the boy truly needed. The billionaire thought about his own approach to life. He had always believed that structure, control, and wealth were the keys to success and happiness. But now he realized that he had been missing the heart of the matter. True happiness, he understood, came from connection, from moments of genuine joy, from the trust and care between people. The maid had given his son that gift, and in doing so, she had given him a lesson he would never forget. The boy turned his head toward his father, a shy smile spreading across his face. He felt proud, not of riding on the maid's back, but of sharing this happiness with his father. He wanted him to see that he could laugh, that he could enjoy life, that he could feel free in his own way. The billionaire's smile encouraged him, and he laughed again, louder and more freely than before. The sound seemed to carry through the garden, filling every corner with warmth and light. The maid continued to walk carefully, guiding him through the garden and toward a small fountain. She let him lean slightly forward to watch the water sparkle in the morning sun. The boy reached out, trying to touch the ripples, and laughed as the water splashed softly against his hands. The billionaire felt his heart swell with emotion. He had never realized that such small moments could be so powerful, so meaningful. The laughter, the movement, the connection were far more valuable than any treatment or device. The billionaire stepped closer, finally finding his voice. I didn't know you could do this," he said softly, looking at the maid. She looked up at him, her expression calm but confident. "I just wanted him to feel happy," she replied gently. "He deserves to feel alive, even if just for a moment." He nodded, understanding the depth of her words. He realized that she had done something extraordinary. She had given his son something he had never experienced, something far beyond the reach of money or technology. She had given him life in its simplest and most beautiful form: laughter, freedom, and joy. The boy's eyes shone with happiness. The billionaire felt a sense of humility and gratitude that he had never felt before. The boy's laughter continued, and the billionaire felt a warmth spread through his chest. He thought about all the times he had tried to control everything, to manage every detail of his son's life, and he realized that he had been missing the essence of care. True care was not just about providing resources or enforcing schedules. It was about understanding, empathy, and creating moments of joy. The maid had shown him this truth, and he felt a deep respect for her courage and dedication. The boy leaned forward slightly, pointing at a butterfly that had landed nearby. The maid followed his gaze, and the boy laughed as the butterfly took off again, fluttering into the sunlight. The billionaire watched closely, noticing the sparkle in his son's eyes, the joy in his laughter, and the bond between the boy and the maid. It was a scene of pure happiness, a lesson in love and care that no one had ever taught him. He realized that this moment was more than just a playful act. It was a turning point. It was a reminder that life was not just about rules, schedules, or wealth. It was about connection, love, and the simple joys that made every day worth living. The maid had shown him this, and he knew that he would never forget it. He felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for the happiness she had given his son, but for the lesson she had taught him about life and love. The sun continued to rise, casting a warm glow across the garden. The flowers swayed gently in the breeze, and the air was filled with the scent of morning. The billionaire stood quietly, observing the boy on the maid's back, feeling a mixture of awe, gratitude, and hope. He knew that this moment would stay with him forever, a reminder of what truly mattered in life. The boy's laughter, the maid's care, and the simple joy of movement had created a memory that he would cherish always. The boy's laughter rang out once more. The billionaire felt a shift inside him. He understood that happiness could not be bought or controlled. It came from love, attention, and the courage to embrace life fully. The maid had given him a gift that no amount of money could ever match. She had given his son a moment of freedom, joy, and connection, and in doing so, she had changed the billionaire's perspective forever. As the morning progressed, the billionaire continued to watch, learning silently from the bond between his son and the maid. He realized that this was not just a fleeting moment. It was the beginning of a new way of life, a life filled with laughter, trust, and human connection. And as he stood there, he knew that everything had changed, and that change was for the better. He understood that from this day forward, he would approach his son's life with a new understanding, a new appreciation for the simple joys, and a commitment to creating moments of happiness that no wealth or control could ever provide. The boy laughed again, throwing his head back with pure delight, and the billionaire felt tears sting his eyes. He had learned a lesson he would carry forever, that true happiness comes from love, care, and human connection, and that the courage to bring joy to others is one of the most powerful gifts a person can give. And in that garden, with the sun shining and the laughter ringing, he knew that this was only the beginning of a journey that would change all of their lives forever. The billionaire stood in the garden, still watching his son laugh and play atop the maid's back. A whirlwind of thoughts ran through his mind. He had always believed that structure, wealth, control were enough to ensure his son's safety and happiness. But seeing him like this made him question everything. The boy was free in a way the billionaire had never imagined possible. The laughter, the joy, and the trust between the maid and his son were more powerful than any therapy or equipment he could provide. Yet, as he watched, a part of him still wrestled with worry. Was this really safe? Could something go wrong? He wanted to intervene, to protect his son, but another, stronger voice told him to pause and watch. This was more than just play. It was connection, trust, and love unfolding right before his eyes. The maid moved slowly across the garden, careful with each step. She knew how fragile the moment was, not physically, but emotionally. She had spent months building trust with the boy, learning his limits, understanding his fears, and celebrating his joys. This was more than a physical act. It was a gift of freedom, a chance for him to feel alive in a way he hadn't felt since the accident. The boy's small hands clutched her shoulders tightly, but his face was radiant with happiness. His eyes sparkled as he looked at the flowers, the trees, and the open sky above. Taking in everything with wonder, the billionaire continued to watch. Torn between instinctive caution and a growing sense of admiration, He had never realized how much he had underestimated the power of human connection. All his wealth, all his meticulous planning, had done little to provide the kind of joy he now saw on his son's face. The laughter, trust, and love that flowed naturally between the maid and his son were things that money could not buy, things he had never learned from any book or teacher. He felt a strange humility, a deep sense of respect, and even a hint of shame for all the years he had focused on control over care. Inside the mansion, staff had noticed the commotion outside. The cooks paused their work, the gardener looked up from his tasks, and the butler stepped toward the window, curious about the laughter and movement in the garden. The sounds carried a warmth and life that seemed foreign to the usually strict and controlled atmosphere of the mansion. The billionaire realized that this moment was not just changing his son's life, it was shifting the energy of the entire household. It was a reminder that joy, care, and connection had a ripple effect that went far beyond what any one person could do alone. The boy laughed again, pointing excitedly at a butterfly that had landed on a nearby flower. The maid followed his gaze, smiling gently as the boy reached out to touch it. He giggled when the butterfly flew away, and the sound was pure music to the billionaire's ears. He felt a lump in his throat, realizing that he had spent so much time worrying about his son's safety, health, and progress that he had overlooked the small moments that truly mattered. Happiness was not about control or perfection. It was about trust, love, and the courage to allow joy to flourish. The billionaire stepped closer, feeling an unfamiliar nervousness. He wanted to speak, to express what he felt, but words seemed inadequate. He had always been a man of action, of control, not emotion. Yet here he was witnessing something that demanded more than action. It demanded understanding, acceptance, and humility. He realized that he needed to let go of his rigid expectations and simply be present for his son, to witness his happiness without interference or judgment. The maid glanced briefly at the billionaire, noting the change in his demeanor. His eyes, once stern and guarded, now held a softness she had never seen before. She continued walking carefully, letting the boy experience the freedom he so rarely felt. She knew the importance of this moment, not just for him, but for his father. She understood that sometimes the simplest acts of care could teach the most profound lessons. By allowing the boy to laugh, to move, to explore, she was showing the billionaire a side of life that he had long ignored, a side where love and joy mattered more than control or wealth. The boy leaned slightly forward, reaching out to touch the petals of a flower, and the billionaire felt his heart swell with emotion. He thought of all the times he had tried to control every aspect of his son's life, believing that rules and planning were the keys to happiness. And now he saw the truth. Happiness was not about rules, schedules, or resources. It was about connection, understanding, and moments of genuine joy. The maid had given his son that gift, and in doing so, she had given him a lesson that no amount of wealth could ever provide. The boy laughed again, louder this time, and the billionaire smiled despite himself. He realized that his son's happiness was contagious, capable of shifting moods and perspectives. He had been so focused on what he thought his son needed that he had overlooked what he truly wanted: freedom, laughter, and care from someone who understood him. The maid had provided that, and the billionaire felt a deep respect for her courage, kindness, and dedication. The garden was bathed in sunlight, the flowers swaying gently, and the air filled with the sense of morning. The boy's laughter echoed through the space, a reminder of the simple joys of life. The billionaire noticed the careful balance, the trust, and the unspoken communication between the maid and his son. It was a partnership built on love, patience, and understanding. And he realized that it was exactly what his son needed to feel alive. The experience was a revelation, showing him the true power of empathy and connection. He stepped closer still, watching as the maid guided the boy toward a small fountain. The boy leaned forward, fascinated by the shimmering water, reaching out to touch it. The ripples reflected the sunlight, and he laughed at the tiny splashes. The billionaire felt a warmth spread through his chest, understanding for the first time that joy could not be scheduled, planned, or controlled. It had to be felt, experienced, and shared. The maid had given him that experience, and in doing so, she had taught him a lesson he would carry for the rest of his life. The billionaire finally spoke, his voice soft but steady. I didn't know you could do this," he said, looking at the maid. She looked up at him, her expression calm yet confident. "I just wanted him to feel happy," she replied. "He deserves to feel alive, even if just for a moment." He nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. She had given his son something far beyond the reach of money, medicine, or equipment. She had given him laughter, freedom, and connection. The boy's eyes shone with happiness, and the billionaire felt a sense of humility and admiration that he had never experienced before. He realized that sometimes the most profound lessons in life come from the simplest acts of kindness. The boy laughed again. The billionaire felt a tear slip down his cheek. He had spent years trying to control everything, believing that structure and resources were enough. Now he understood that what truly mattered was love, connection, and the courage to embrace joy. The maid had provided all of this, and he knew that her influence would change their lives forever. The boy leaned forward slightly, reaching out to a butterfly that had landed nearby. The maid followed his gaze, and the boy laughed as it flew away. The billionaire watched, feeling the power of these small moments. He realized that his son's happiness was not dependent on perfect control, schedules, or expensive treatments. It was dependent on connection, care, and moments of freedom. And the maid had given him exactly that. The sun climbed higher in the sky, casting a warm glow over the garden. The flowers swayed gently, and the air was filled with life and warmth. The billionaire stood quietly, observing the boy and the maid, feeling a mixture of awe, gratitude, and hope. He knew that this moment would stay with him forever, a reminder of what truly mattered. The laughter, care, and trust in the garden were lessons he would never forget as the morning went on. The billionaire continued to watch, understanding the depth of the bond between his son and the maid. He realized that this was not just a fleeting moment. It was a turning point, a beginning of a new way of living. A life filled with laughter, trust, and human connection. The boy's laughter, the maid's care, and the freedom to experience joy had created a memory that would shape them all forever. The billionaire knew that his perspective had changed, and that from this day forward, he would approach his son's life with a new understanding. Appreciating the small moments that brought true happiness, the morning sun was now high in the sky, casting a warm golden glow over the garden. The boy laughed freely, riding on the maid's back, while the billionaire watched quietly from a short distance. The sound of laughter seemed to fill the entire estate, touching even the staff inside the mansion who had paused in their routines to listen. The billionaire felt a sense of calm that he had never known in years of busy schedules and endless responsibilities. For the first time, he realized that true joy was not something that could be bought or controlled. It came from love, care, and the simple moments that allowed people to connect and feel alive. The maid walked slowly, ensuring that the boy remained balanced and safe. Every step she took was measured, yet filled with ease and warmth. She understood the trust the boy had placed in her, and she treated it with the utmost care. Her face was serene, reflecting a deep satisfaction in being able to provide a moment of happiness that money or therapy could never achieve. She had spent countless hours observing, learning, and understanding the boy's needs. And this was the result: a small, perfect moment where he could experience freedom. The billionaire took another step closer, finally allowing himself to be part of the scene without interrupting it. He observed carefully, noticing the little things, the way the boy's fingers brushed against the flowers, the sparkle in his eyes, the trust he had in the maid. Every small detail spoke volumes about the bond they shared. It was a connection built on patience, understanding, and pure intention, something that no amount of wealth or planning could replicate. The boy giggled as a butterfly fluttered past, and the maid guided him to follow it, laughing along with him. The billionaire watched, feeling his heart open in ways it had not before. He remembered the countless hours spent worrying about his son's future, his health, and the routines that filled his days. He realized now that all that concern, while had missed the most important part: allowing his son to experience life fully, to feel joy in the moment, and to trust someone who genuinely cared. As the maid moved toward a small fountain at the edge of the garden, the boy leaned forward, trying to touch the rippling water. The sunlight shimmered on the surface, and the boy laughed with delight. The billionaire felt a lump in his throat. He had never realized that such simple experiences could be so transformative, not just for his son, but for himself. The sight reminded him that happiness was not a result of wealth or control, but of genuine connection and care. He took a few more steps closer, his eyes fixed on his son's face. The boy caught sight of him and waved shyly, still clinging to the maid's shoulders. The billionaire smiled, a smile that was soft and warm, unlike the controlled expressions he often wore. He felt a profound shift inside him, a mixture of pride, gratitude, and humility. He had been given a lesson that no amount of business success or money could ever teach, that true care came from empathy, love, and presence. The maid noticed the subtle change in the billionaire's expression and continued her careful walk. She could feel that her actions had already made an impact, and she took solace in the fact that she was helping not just the boy, but also his father, to see the value of genuine human connection. She guided the boy gently, letting him lean toward the fountain, letting him explore and touch the water while maintaining his safety. Her confidence and composure reflected the love she had for the boy and the trust he had in her. The boy laughed again, reaching out to splash the water slightly, and the sound seemed to carry through the air, filling the garden with warmth and life. The billionaire felt tears prick his eyes as he realized how much he had underestimated the power of joy, trust, and simple care. He had focused so much on providing material security and structured routines that he had missed the essence of what his son truly needed. In this moment, he understood that happiness was not something to be given through money or plans, but through presence, love, and shared experience. The maid carefully turned, walking toward a shaded area where the boy could rest. She lowered him gently, letting him sit while she knelt beside him, smiling reassuringly. The boy's laughter had subsided into a soft, contented smile, and he looked at his father, who was now standing closer, observing with a newfound understanding. The billionaire took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the lesson sink in. He realized that he had spent years worrying about outcomes without ever fully appreciating the small moments that made life meaningful. The boy reached out to his father tentatively, and the billionaire knelt down beside him, taking his small hand in his own. The touch was simple, yet it conveyed everything that words could not: love, care, and the desire to be present. The boy's smile widened, and he leaned against his father briefly, feeling the warmth and security that only a parent could provide. The billionaire felt a wave of emotion he had never experienced in such clarity before. He understood now that love was not just about providing material needs. It was about connection, understanding, and shared joy. The maid watched silently, feeling a sense of fulfillment. She had done more than provide a moment of fun. She had helped bridge a gap, creating understanding and connection between father and son. Her work had gone beyond the household chores, beyond simple care, to touch the heart of a family in ways that no one could measure. The billionaire looked at her with gratitude, knowing that without her courage and compassion, this moment might never have existed. The boy began to laugh again, this time inviting his father into the playful spirit. The billionaire smiled and joined in, lifting his son gently and twirling him slightly, careful of his safety. The laughter that followed was rich and full, a sound that seemed to cleanse years of worry and tension. It was a sound of pure joy, a sound that filled the entire garden and echoed into the mansion, touching everyone who heard it. The billionaire realized that this laughter was more valuable than any business deal, more meaningful than any achievement, because it represented life, connection, and love. Time seemed to stretch as they continued in the garden, father and son sharing small moments of joy, with the maid guiding them and ensuring everything was safe. Each smile, each laugh, each gentle touch created a sense of unity and love that the billionaire had never fully experienced before. He felt grateful not only for the happiness of his son, but also for the lesson he had learned. Through the courage and kindness of the maid, as the morning waned, The billionaire reflected on everything that had happened. He understood that wealth, power, and control could never replace love, trust, and connection. He realized that he had been blind to the most important aspect of his son's life, and that the maid had opened his eyes. Her simple, courageous act had reminded him of the value of human kindness, the importance of shared joy, and the profound effect of empathy and care. The boy leaned against his father, smiling and content. The billionaire felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that his son was happy and that he had witnessed a transformation in himself as well. He looked at the maid, feeling gratitude and respect for her unwavering dedication. She had shown him what it truly meant to care, to love, and to bring happiness into the life of someone who needed it most. It was a lesson he would carry forever. The garden, bathed in sunlight, felt alive with the presence of love, laughter, and understanding. The boy's joy, the maid's care, and the billionaire's growing awareness had created a harmony that was palpable. It was a reminder that true happiness and connection were simple, yet profound, and that moments of shared joy could change hearts and lives in ways no wealth or control ever could. The billionaire took his son's hand, looked into his eyes, and whispered softly, "I promise I will never forget this. I will be here, truly here for you." The boy smiled, feeling the sincerity in his father's words. The maid watched, her heart full, knowing that her role in this moment had been more than just carrot, had been a bridge to understanding, love, and happiness. As the day moved forward, the mansion seemed lighter, filled with a new energy that came from shared joy and connection. The billionaire knew that his perspective had shifted forever. He had learned the most important lesson of all, that happiness was not about control or wealth, but about love, care, and the courage to create moments that let people feel alive. The boy laughed once more, the sound rich and pure, and the billionaire joined him, feeling a joy that he had never known was possible. The garden, the sun, the laughter, and the bond they shared became a memory that would stay with them all forever. A reminder that life's true wealth comes from the heart, from love, and from the simple, precious moments we share with those we care about. Their feet, the maid walked carefully, making sure each step was steady, while the boy's laughter filled the air. He felt like he was flying, even if just for a moment. The wind brushed against his face, and he could see the flowers swaying in the morning breeze. It was a feeling he had not experienced in a long time, a pure, simple joy. Inside the mansion, everything was quiet. The other staff went about their routines, unaware of the small miracle happening outside. The gardener tended to the plants, the cooks prepared breakfast, and the butler checked the schedule for the day. Life went on as usual, but in the garden, time seemed to stand still. The boy and the maid were lost in their own world, a world where laughter and movement were the most important things. Meanwhile, the billionaire's car was approaching the mansion. He had left his office earlier than expected, eager to return home. He was tired from his long days of meetings and travel, but he was looking forward to seeing his son. In his mind, he pictured the boy sitting quietly in his wheelchair, perhaps reading or playing with a tablet, as he always did. He had no idea that what awaited him would challenge everything he thought he knew about his son and his household. As the car pulled up to the front entrance, the billionaire took a deep breath. He wanted everything to be perfect, just as he had left it. He had always believed that order and control were the keys to happiness. Yet, as he stepped out of the car and walked toward the garden, a sound reached his ears, a sound he had not heard in his home for a long time. It was laughter, clear and bright, echoing across the morning air. It was the kind of laughter that could not be faked or forced, the kind that came from pure joy. He followed the sound, his steps quickening as curiosity and surprise mingled within him. When he reached the garden, he stopped dead in his tracks. There, in front of him, was a sight that made his heart skip a beat. His son, the boy he had worried over for years, was riding on the maid's back. The maid walked steadily, her face calm and gentle, while the boy laughed and held on tightly. His eyes sparkled with happiness, something the billionaire had rarely seen. For a moment, the billionaire could not speak. He felt a rush of emotions, shock, disbelief, and an unexpected warmth that filled his chest. He had never imagined that his son could experience such freedom, such pure joy. His mind raced with questions, but he did not move or interrupt. He simply watched, taking in every detail of the scene before him. The maid had noticed the movement at the edge of the garden and glanced toward the mansion. Her eyes widened slightly as she saw the billionaire standing there, his expression a mixture of surprise and something she could not immediately identify. She felt a pang of worry, unsure of how he would react. She had only wanted to make his son happy, to give him a moment of pure delight. She had not expected the father to return so suddenly. The boy, sensing the presence of his father, looked over his shoulder. His laughter faltered for a moment, replaced by a shy smile. He knew his father could be strict, and he wondered if he had done something wrong. Yet the joy he felt on the maid's back was so strong that he could not hide it. He wanted his father to see him happy, to understand the simple pleasure of being carried and moved, of feeling alive. The billionaire took a step forward, still unsure of how to react. He had been away for so long, absorbed in the demands of his work, that he had forgotten the small but vital moments of life. Seeing his son like this, laughing freely and completely, struck a chord deep within him. He realized that no amount of wealth, no expensive therapy, or state-of-the-art equipment could replace the genuine love and care that the maid had shown. He took another step, then another, his eyes fixed on the boy. The laughter and movement in the garden seemed to slow time, allowing him to absorb every detail. The connection between the maid and his son was evident, built on trust, kindness, and a deep understanding of what the boy needed. It was a bond that money could never buy. As the maid carefully carried the boy across the garden, the billionaire felt something shift inside him. He thought about all the times he had worried about schedules, routines, and therapies, and he realized that he had overlooked the most important thing: happiness. True happiness, he understood now, came not from perfection or control, but from moments like this, simple and genuine, where love and care created a space for joy. The boy's laughter continued, pure and infectious, and the billionaire could not help but smile. A smile that had been absent for far too long. He knew that this moment would stay with him forever, a reminder of what mattered most. The world of business, money, and status seemed distant and unimportant compared to the laughter of his son. Riding on the back of a maid who had shown him what it meant to truly live, the sun rose higher in the sky, casting a warm glow over the garden. The flowers swayed gently in the breeze, and the air was filled with the scent of morning. The billionaire watched in silence, absorbing the scene, feeling a mixture of emotions he had not felt in years. Pride, gratitude, and love mingled within him, creating a powerful and humbling realization. His son was happy, truly happy, and it was all because of the kindness and care of the maid, who had risked everything to give him this moment. Time seemed to stand still as he continued to watch, realizing that this was only the beginning of a change he did not yet fully understand. The bonds of love, trust, and human connection were stronger than wealth or status, stronger than fear or control. He understood that, from this day forward, his life, his son's life, and the life of everyone in the mansion would be different. Something fundamental had shifted, and he was grateful for it, even if he did not yet know how to express it. The billionaire took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace he had never experienced before. He knew that he needed to approach this moment carefully, with understanding and respect. The laughter of his son and the gentle strength of the maid had opened his eyes to a new way of seeing the world. A world where happiness was not dictated by rules or money, but by love, care, and the courage to do what was right. As he stood there, watching his son riding on the maid's back, he felt hope. Hope for his son, hope for his family, and hope for himself. He knew that the days ahead would bring challenges, but he also knew that this moment, this simple morning in the garden, would be the foundation for something extraordinary. It was a reminder that life was not just about control or perfection, but about connection, joy, and the moments that make the heart sing. And so, As the sun climbed higher, the billionaire remained in the garden, quietly observing, quietly learning, and quietly beginning a journey that would change him forever. The laughter of his son, carried on the back of a humble maid, would be a memory he would cherish for the rest of his life. A lesson in love, kindness, and the true meaning of happiness.